Welcome back. I'm Dave Meltzer here at Boise's Entrepreneur Week, and I have a special guest, last year's winner of the pitch competition here in Boise at the Entrepreneur Week, the startup competition, and it's Alexis Rankin. She is the CEO and founder of Chillow. And Alexis, welcome back as a victorious entrepreneur. I'm most curious, give me a status report on how much this competition 1 year ago has helped you in the advancement that you've made.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Winning this competition has led to so many different connections within the Valley and even out of the Valley, right? Silicon Slopes area, Silicon Valley. It's been a whirlwind since. Obviously, the money from the grant was, a huge opportunity to continue building. My co-founder and I have bootstrapped the entire thing. So to win $20,000 for a pitch competition was, a huge advancement for us. So it just continued to propel the business forward.
And most of the greatest startups that I get to see have some sort of emotional attachment. And I'd love for those that didn't see you pitch last year, for you to share exactly what Chillow does and how you came up with this extraordinary idea.
Yeah, great question. So for those who didn't see last year, my co-founder and I had moved into an apartment about 11 years ago with a woman, and we had come home from a 10-day long vacation after leaving our portion of the rent money with her to an eviction notice hanging up on our door. And when we walked into the apartment, we were just perplexed, like, what is going on? Some of our stuff was missing, her stuff was gone. And of course, after going down to the leasing office, we actually found out that she had taken our portion of the rent money and gone to Las Vegas, Nevada, getting us evicted.
Wow.
So, and thus the inspiration and idea of Chillow was born.
And I always say the best piece of advice I give to startup entrepreneurs is to stay in business. And that extra capital as you're bootstrapping obviously goes to staying in business. What are some of the things that you initially did? It's a windfall to receive $20,000 in that grant. What were some of the first things that you did with the money?
So a lot of it went to development, working out bugs. We had hired and brought on a new CTO at the time. And so it was a fantastic move on our end, business-wise, but ultimately we had to get him up to speed and up and running. He was coming over and taking someone else's code. So it was as a smooth transition could have been. And a lot of that money went into debugging, development, and advancements within the technology.
And what's the biggest challenge? I know obviously you pitched during the pandemic, so it wasn't a surprise that we're dealing with COVID, but what were some of the challenges that occurred from either the development or other aspects of the business that you weren't prepared for?
Yeah, that's another great question. We pivoted, I believe, fairly well. It actually also opened up an array of opportunities. There is really no other platforms out there that allow people, when they're looking for a roommate or place to live right now, that says, are you maintaining 6 feet? Are you vaccinated? Yes or no? Are you comfortable with me coming into your home? And so what we've done was we've integrated certain features like that on the platform, and we're currently building out in-app video conferencing calls as well for those that just simply aren't looking to have somebody step into their home without getting to know the person first, and her being a little extra precautious. So as much as it's posed some challenges, it's allowed us to pivot in a lot of different ways as well.
And you have a two-sided marketplace, which always presents challenges for a startup because you're always choosing which one should we do first, or how much should we concentrate on one or the other. What have you decided to do in the two-sided marketplace? Are you looking more towards the renters or those actually rentees?
Right now, so some of the advancements we've made here locally, because we're really focusing on growing our market here. So we have partnered with 3 different Gray Star managed communities here: Whitewater Park, the Lofts at 10 Mile, as well as Reed House, downtown Boise. And they've been phenomenal partners of ours. You can find our marketing material all over. And, one of what we've realized is one of the things of property managers, one of their pain points of property managers is that their number one reason for lease termination is roommate fallout. And so through all of this research and, community-driven conversations, we've learned that there's a really big niche for that. And it goes to the double-sided marketplace, right? They have the places, and yet the roommates are still looking for a new roommate. So we've been able to partner with 3 communities locally here that is able has been giving us the opportunity to actually have places now that are valuable for rent on the platform.
One of the other things that I've seen evolve here in Boise is the credibility quotient. Obviously, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars in Silicon Valley, Southern California, and now internationally. And the advancement in the entrepreneurial, not only spirit, but funding that's occurring here has brought a lot of credibility for companies or startups like yours. I know there's been $2 or $3 billion exits in the past 12 months here, which brings more attention. How much credibility did you have winning the pitch competition here, since we have such a great elevated status for entrepreneurs compared to in the middle of Nebraska, for example?
Yeah. And no offense if anybody's watching from Nebraska.
No, it's just the truth.
No, I think that there was a lot of credibility that came with that. We won really early on. We were only really a year in, maybe a little bit more at that point. At this point, we've had 115 organic downloads just from pure grit, grind, no paid advertising yet. That actually starts November 1st, which will be great. And so we're excited about it. And I believe that the momentum and the search engine optimization of our names and who we are and our story is getting out there organically, which has been amazing. I think there's been a lot of credibility and a lot of conversations I would not have had, or that I would have not have had that early on with investors had I not had that credibility. No investment yet. We're being very specific and careful about who we bring on, especially first. But we're now going back to those investors that we initially had those conversations with after gaining credibility last year and starting to have some momentum there for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting play with the property managers. Was that something that you knew about before the pitch competition, or was it an area that you were going to explore afterwards? It was just something that evolved from the financing and the ability to be more creative?
Somewhat unrelated. One of the communities here approached us. They just said, this is a pain point. We love what you guys are doing. Let's meet. And I firmly believe in, affirmations and manifesting. And I was told early on, you get into Greystar, that is just, you're good as gold, right? And so I just said, okay, we'll get into Greystar and we'll do it around this time. And it was as if, magic had happened. They had emailed us and they had reached out and the rest is history from there. And we're just continuing to build those partnerships. We take them very seriously, right? So I give them my direct phone number. I personally drop off the marketing material. If there is a bug in the app, I give them my direct phone number. We want to make sure we're providing the highest level because, they've are taking the risk in partnering with us early on as well.
I'll have to use you an example. You're someone that I manifested. Actually, my first book I wrote is called Manifesting Everything You Want in Life and Business. And boom, here you are.
That.
So it's very good. Let's get to the pitching side of things. I'm blessed to be the executive producer of Entrepreneur's Elevator Pitch and then have produced my own show called 2 Minute Drill, which we're incorporating into the pitch competition, utilizing the same format and structure. Would love to know why you think you won the competition. What was it about your pitch that you think swayed or attracted the judges?
That's a great question. I organize my thoughts and I practice it like a monologue. Now you're the pro, so I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but we were acknowledged as being one of the better ones.
You're the pro.
So it worked. I took a lot of acting classes as a kid, cadence. Though I talk fast, I have to remind myself, slow down. But other than that, I just felt like I can be somewhat engaging and I'm very organized with my thoughts. And the way that I executed it was very purposeful. So I memorized it like a monologue. When people ask me, because I got that question a lot after the first presentation, they were like, gosh, it's as if you had practiced over. And I said, well, yeah, I listened to it falling asleep, my own recording. It's a little weird, but I got over it.
Smart.
And I just memorized it as if it was a monologue so I could focus more on the cadence, direct eye contact, and engaging the audience in a different way.
One of the things that's an intangible is energy. And since you're this amazing manifester as well, I'd love to get your insight on clarity, balance, and focus comes from that practice, which creates what's called a confident energy. I call it 120 energy, where you walk into a room, Alexis, and you lit the room up. So I wasn't even looking, and I felt, I'm empathetic, so I felt your presence. How much of the energy, because you bring it in this interview, and it's evokes confidence in an investor when you're like, oh yeah, I'm betting on this jockey. I don't care what the horse is, and your horse is a great horse,
Yeah.
but I bet on you as a jockey. You come into a room, you light it up, you speak with confidence, with attention and intention, besides the connotation and intonation of the acting skills that you have. How important is your energy? Do you focus in on how you bring it before you pitch or before a presentation? Is that something you're aware of, or is it just natural?
I would say it's probably more natural. I am somebody who can just leave it at the door. And so I've been able to do that my whole life, which has been great. You would never know if I walked into a room to do a pitch or something like this, if I'm dealing with a million other things. I have a lot of other things like so many entrepreneurs do have going on. I'm also still part-time running Keller Williams Realty Boise here as the vice president and co-president. It's been a little wild of a ride. So it's given us a lot of relationships and insights to build Chillow. And as we bootstrap, I've walked away a little bit more slowly. So when it goes back to energy, I think you have to dial it in and be purposeful with the choice of energy, because if you allow others, sometimes you said you're an
Empathetic, yeah.
empathetic. That's fantastic. And I know sometimes being empathetic, you can probably allow other people's energy to like drain you a bit. So I've been really aware of that because I deal with people's problems all day and I can't make them my own. So I'm really checking in on my own energy when I walk into a room, if I'm presenting or doing something like this, to make sure I'm not only draining other people, but keeping it up myself and bringing that energy, especially doing what I do.
Should have 3 teenage daughters like me, and then you'll realize about the time and energy suck.
Oh, yep.
Beyond entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Moreover, though, you brought up an interesting thing about bootstrapping your business. One of the most common questions when I coach people is when should I raise money and how much? And I love asking entrepreneurs their perspective of when, now that you're growing, when should you raise money and how much do you think you should raise?
Gosh, I wish we weren't on camera because I'd turn around and ask you to give me advice.
I can.
I
You
mean,
can do that.
I don't know the answer to that. All I know is, and have learned, the more users and the more you have on your platform, the more engagement, the farther along you are, the less you're going to give up. So go until you absolutely have to. And Kevin Learned here locally gave me that advice. He was like, "Why are you raising money? You can afford this."
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
exactly the other part of it. So I can give you some advice is, so there's only 2 values that you have to worry about in your company. There's a perceived value and a bottom line value. Everyone gets too confused trying to decide otherwise. So for example, you don't want to go as far as you can if somebody comes in and said, you know what, I own the biggest property management company in the world, and I want to put $100 million into your company at $1 billion valuation. Then your whole world, right? You don't need the money, right? It's not the last minute,
Right.
but the perceived value is so high,
Right.
and it exceeds your bottom line so much, and it provides you so much opportunity, you would take it. So I think having people reverse engineer where their perceived value is of their business at all time, where the bottom line value is of all time, and then the timing and risk tolerance by attracting as many offers, since you are a manifestor, attracting as many offers as you can and not limiting your beliefs or the exposure that you have where you don't believe that there are opportunities like that. Because I see it happen every day where people are closed-minded in this more vacuumous, well, I'll raise money when I can, and they're limiting themselves when, I'm looking at what you're doing as a huge opportunity, because I never thought of when we sat down and I did my research on your company and was so excited, I never realized the property management aspect because of the fact you said more people default because of roommate.
Yeah.
That's a huge business issue that can be capitalized and leveraged, which is probably part of the reason, you also, besides being an incredible pitch person, won that competition. So beyond that, people. I always say, the things I don't like about being an entrepreneur is employees and overhead.
Yeah.
In fact, if you don't like someone, my best piece of advice is say, I hope your company grows and may you have thousands of employees and tons of office space.
Yeah.
You just cursed them and they think you love them.
Yeah.
For you, what's your biggest challenge of an entrepreneur with the people?
I've been really blessed. We've kept it very small, affordability, a couple different things, choice. So I've been really blessed. We did run into our first developer. It wasn't great, to be honest, and that's okay. But we had brought on somebody else who's now a partner in this business who's fantastic. I have a great head of marketing and assistant. We've been very diligent and, again, purposeful on bringing on interns from Boise State. So we currently have 4 interns that are with us, and they're gaining a ton out of it and a ton of value. And then of course, my co-founder and husband, Steven. So it's a small knit, little tight group of us. And sometimes I think when you have the right people in place, people are like, you got to grow your staff or your employees. And I'm like, when you have 4 or 5 high quality people, you don't. And sometimes, like you said, it creates a lot of nightmares, expenses, W-2, overhead, all the things.
Very, very smart.
Yeah.
Best piece of advice I got is trust and vet when it comes to people, especially. Well, what a pleasure it's been. There's no wonder you won last year's competition.
Thank you.
It's so exciting to meet you. Alexis Rankin, co-founder of Chillow and last year's winner of the Entrepreneur Startup Pitch Competition. Thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, this is David Meltzer. Coming up next, we have the 2021 Pitch Competition. That's the 2-minute drill edition. I know a little bit about that. But first, a word from our sponsors.